Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Let me start by saying this isn't my own story. It's about someone close to me, and I'll leave out a lot of specific details because some info isn't mine to share. The lead up to the revenge was that this person had a terrible boss. She worked in HR and handled payroll at what was basically a nursing home, though they didn't call it that officially. The company had this good old boys club mentality, with all the top managers being older men who did less work but got paid more than almost everyone else. There were constant complaints from women about being mistreated, and many got fired for ridiculous reasons, while their male co-workers got raises. That alone was bad enough, but it's not what sparked the need for revenge. What really set things off was when the company fired my friend's manager, a woman, because she took a week off after breaking her leg badly. The HR department was already understaffed, so my friend had to take on this manager's responsibilities without any pay increase. She requested a raise multiple times, but got denied every time. A couple of months later, the company hired a new manager to replace the old one at almost twice the salary. This new guy was an older man. I'm not sure what he actually did all day because my friend continued doing all the managerial tasks, and she knew for a fact that his account didn't have access to the systems he needed, and he never asked for that access. For 6 months, my friend showed this manager issues with their system, including payroll, and explained that she was the only employee who knew how to use the payroll system, and the only one with access to it. The sexist jerk ignored her and regularly made comments about how she was replaceable and useless. One day she snapped. She set up a bot with her credentials to automatically assign her pay each pay period, according to her actual salary, so not stealing or anything. She then carefully planned her next move and put in her 2-week notice, right before a big department-wide vacation week and right before her only coworker left for 2 weeks. She wouldn't have time to train the coworker even if they were around. The manager still dismissed her, thinking he could just hire someone who knew what they were doing. Little did he know, she had tweaked the payroll software over time. Nothing major, but it was very different from the base software. She was the only person who knew how to properly use it, and the only one in the whole company, including the CEO, who had access to the necessary numbers to actually run payroll. When she left after those 2 weeks, the company had 2 whole pay periods where they couldn't pay their employees. They just couldn't. But my friend still got paid because they never disabled her automatic payment thing. They couldn't. Eventually, they called her and basically begged her to consult with them on their payroll. For the past 6 months, she's been paid $300 an hour for 4 hours a week to run the company's payroll. Fully remote, even though it was an in-person job before. And to top it all off, she doesn't even actually work those 4 hours. She wrote a script on her personal device to process payroll for her. She just has to press one button. She's working another job now, but damn, she really stuck it to them for their crap. "Hey, what did the manager say when your friend put in her notice?" I asked. "Oh man, you should have seen his face," she replied with a laugh. "He got all red and flustered and was like, 'You can't just leave us like this, we need you.' But my friend just smiled and said, 'Maybe you should have listened when I told you I was the only one who could run payroll properly.' That sexist pig had it coming." The next one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my quiet suburban neighborhood for over 10 years now. It's one of those charming places with big trees, neat lawns, and friendly folks who always wave hello. At least it used to be that way until Karen moved in a few months back. Karen is the epitome of an entitled, obnoxious neighbor who thinks she owns the whole block. Ever since she arrived, she's been nothing but a menace to our once peaceful community. It started off slowly at first. She would leave trash cans out days after pickup or let her dog run loose, pooping on everyone's lawns. Annoying stuff, but nothing too crazy. We figured she was just clueless and needed some time to adjust. Oh, how wrong we were. After a few weeks, Karen really started flexing her entitlement muscles. She began calling the cops on neighbors for the most ridiculous reasons. My next-door neighbor, a high school teacher, was reported for suspicious behavior when he was simply grading papers late one night. Another neighbor got the cops called because their kids were playing basketball too loudly in their own driveway on a Saturday afternoon. Karen even tried to get an elderly widow's house condemned by claiming it was a hazard. The only hazard was Karen's vicious lies. The poor widow had lived there over 40 years with no issues, but Karen wanted her gone for no reason other than her own twisted power trip. At our quaint little neighborhood park, Karen was a whole other beast. She bullied anyone who came near her spot by the pond, claiming she had some rare skin condition aggravated by sunlight. One time, a mom with 3 young kids politely asked if they could sit nearby since the park was full. Karen went ballistic, screaming at them to move, despite the fact no one was even close to her spot. The poor mom hurried away in tears with her terrified toddlers. The final straw was the neighborhood yard sale. An annual tradition, it was a chance for everyone to clear out clutter and have a good time mingling. Well, leave it to Karen to ruin the fun for all. She tried charging people to walk on the sidewalk by her house, claiming she owned it. Then she went around snooping in sale items at other houses, scolding people for disturbing the peace by attracting so many cars. By the end of the day, she had terrorized half a dozen families and tried bossing around anyone in sight, even barricading the exit at one point to keep people from leaving. That was it. We had finally had enough of her maniac behavior. I teamed up with a few other fed-up neighbors to report Karen's harassment and intimidation to the Homeowners Association board. We showed them documented evidence of her deranged behavior going back weeks. Other neighbors contributed their own stories, creating an overwhelming case against Karen. The HOA held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to evict Karen, the first time such drastic measures had been taken in our neighborhood. They served her papers the very next day, ordering her to vacate the premises immediately due to dozens of policy violations. Karen absolutely lost it. She threw rocks at the HOA president's house and slashed someone's tires. The police had to come and threaten to arrest her if she didn't leave willingly. Almost a month later, she was still refusing to get out, forcing the HOA to take further legal action. Finally, after many court dates and harassment from both sides, Karen was forcibly removed from the neighborhood. As a final blow, the judge banned her from ever returning. Not that any of us would want her back anyway. These days, an aura of peace has returned to our community now that the entitled terror Karen is gone. No more frivolous police calls or bullying neighbors. Just good old-fashioned suburban living with a little justice on the side. The next one is a petty revenge story. So this is kind of a twofold story of petty revenge. So my grandma used to work with this lady. I'll call her Janice. One day, Janice comes into work and tells my grandma that she discovered her husband had been cheating on her. She felt the punishment should fit the crime. If he wants to think with his member, he's going to pay with his member. Not sure if post will get taken down if I use the right word for it, sorry. While he's sleeping naked one day, she sneaks in with a bottle of super glue and glues that same appendage to his lower stomach. I can't imagine what he thought and experienced when he woke up. Janice ended making up with her husband, and they've been together 20+ years at this point. To my knowledge, she never told anyone else in her or his family that this happened or about the infidelity. They kept it quiet to maintain the image of a healthy marriage. However, my grandma still knew. She eventually ended up leaving that job, and she and Janice kind of lost touch. Nothing happened between them, just natural moving away process. My grandma ended up telling my mom the story, and my mom told me. Years later, Janice decides to insult my mom on social media for no reason. My mom had made a post that Janice didn't like or agree with. We weren't even close with Janice or her family at this time. She was just a follower friend on this platform. She had pretty much no relationship with my mom and was just commenting, I guess, to judge her. And Janice implied she was a bad and sinful mom and woman. Cue my petty revenge. I tagged Janice back in a comment and said something along the lines of, "My mom may not be perfect, but at least she's never used superglue on us." She had no response. I like to hope her family and friends saw my comment and asked her about it. Even if they didn't, though, she'll still have to face the psychosocial damage of knowing that my family knows what she did and that maybe other people do. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So, for a little context, this story is not mine. This happened to my father in the 80s and the 90s, but I will write in the first person because English is hard. In the 80s, I lost everything I could. I dropped out of college, my father died of a heart attack, and my mother was somewhere in the wind. I wasn't worth the air I was breathing. As a last effort, I saved up some money to move to a different state so that I could start fresh. I chose Montana to be my new home. Because I didn't have a college degree, I knew I could only make a living with my hands and not my head. After a bit of looking around, I found work on a ranch. The owner of the ranch, let's call him Jack, took me under his wing. He taught me how to ride a horse, how to herd, how to do cutting, roping, and many other useful skills on a ranch. My goal was to have enough money for a deposit so I could buy a house or at least some land. After about 3 years, I had the money, but I loved the ranch and the folks so much that I chose to stay longer. In the spring of '88, I finally made the decision to quit. I was fully honest with Jack about what my intentions were. I told him that I wanted to buy some land to have a ranch of my own and potentially get married and start a family. Being the absolute champ, Jack offered me some contacts of people who were selling land. After some time, I chose a piece of land near Jack's ranch. I got a loan, bought the land, and in the summer I started building my house. By winter, the house was done, and it was planned that in the spring, I'll build a barn and some fences, corrals among others. In the spring, it was back to work, and before summer started, I had nothing to do. I had a lot of time on my hands while I was waiting for all the paperwork to be done. And I wasn't going to spend 2 weeks sitting on my porch doing nothing when Jack promised me that if I would ever need it, he would give me a job. Now, I didn't need a job because of money, but I just didn't have anything to do. So, I went to my good old friend Jack if he needed some help. He said that he could use me to guide people on the tours he was offering. His ranch is not only in the cattle business, he also offers tours of the pristine nature on his property. I happily accepted the job despite me not liking people, but still, it was better than just sitting on my front porch and doing nothing. The first few days went without a problem, but then a wild Karen appeared to brighten up the day. I was just returning from a tour when I saw this Karen in the middle of the field yelling at this girl, who was also a guide. I didn't know the girl, but in my books, whoever makes a girl cry is an a-hole. I came over to them, and in the most passive-aggressive voice I can, I say, "Good day, what seems to be the problem?" And the Karen's wrath was now aimed at me, and she yelled back, "This B***itch has no respect for the desires of the customer. Give me a manager now." Now, I didn't expect such strong wording, but I kept my cool despite my hot-headedness, and I came up to the girl, who's now sobbing because this Karen was mouthing off to her pretty good, and I say to her, "Leave her to me. I'll take care of her. You go take a break and tell Jack that I'll be with this piece of work." She gives me a grateful smile and a nod and rides away. I go to the Karen and I say to her, "Ma'am, I can't get you the manager as he's busy right now, but if you want, I can be your guide in her stead for the remainder of the tour." She replies very politely by saying, "Sure, I think even the trees will be better than that B***teach." Every part of my hot-headed self wants me to pretty much bury this woman right then and there, but I keep my cool and we head off on the tour. And within the first minute, what a piece of work she truly is. She behaves like she knows best and everyone is lesser than her and everything should be given to her. When we are about to turn around and go back, I give her a choice. We could either go the official route, or we could return by the unofficial route, which is shorter, but there were bear sightings reported in the past few days. I tell her that the unofficial route is quite dangerous, but just as I wanted her to do so, she vehemently objects because she is the wisest person alive and knows the best. Great, my trap had worked. After about 5 miles on this unofficial route, she starts screaming and turns so pale that she is even more white than paper. In the distance, there is a grizzly. I knew about the danger I dragged both of us into, but in the end, it was technically her choice to go that route. I tell her to make herself as big and loud as she can. I follow suit, but the bear keeps getting closer. It keeps growling at us. With every growl, Karen was getting ever more pale. After it gets way too dangerous, I shoot a round out of my rifle, and the bear gets scared and runs away into the woods. The entire ride back, she keeps yelling at me that I put her intentionally in so much danger. And yes, I'll admit, it was quite reckless taking a visitor into a part of the woods where there were bear sightings reported, but technically she made the decision to go that route. I stay silent the entire ride because I can't keep a straight face. I was laughing maniacally in my head, and I knew that if I looked at her I would start laughing out loud. When we returned, she was shaking violently and was pale as ever. After I tied up her horse, she demanded that I get her the manager, and I gladly point her to the little building in the distance, and she storms off. She starts yelling at Jack, and I can see that Jack is trying his hardest not to break out laughing. I could hear that she was demanding that I be fired, but the neat part was I wasn't an employee of Jack's. I was doing it as a favor for a friend, and thus, I couldn't be fired. After the Karen's tirade ends, Jack comes to me laughing like a kid and he asks me, "How did you even come up with that, OP?" I start giggling as well and answer, "Well, she made the girl cry, so I wanted to give her special treatment. I heard of the bear sightings and it worked out well in my favor." He then asks me not to do that again as it was reckless, and I agree and I tell Jack, "I don't plan on doing it again, but I had a plan if the bear mauled the damn wretch." My defense would be that I gave her the choice to go on a safer path, but because she was apparently of higher intellect than me, I simply agreed. Jack gives me a smile and heads off. Years later, my father would end up meeting that girl guide again. Her name was Abby, but nowadays I simply call her Mom. The next one is an entitled people story. I work in a Burger King as it pays slightly better than what I was getting working for my aunt, and I've encountered several Karens before, but this incident was the most recent. Last week I was doing a deep cleaning of the playground due to a birthday party that had just finished up earlier, and it was my last task to do before clocking out. My boss had asked me to close the playground since I'd be deep cleaning, and she didn't want customers to be in contact with any chemicals that I'd be using. While cleaning, I noticed that the AC was out and the playground was extremely hot to the point where I had difficulty breathing. To add to the issue, I'm also extremely allergic to some of the cleaning products that we use, so I'm basically in an oven with no airflow and using cleaning chemicals that I can't even touch without my skin cracking. I'm struggling to breathe and cleaning, and while doing that, I notice this man and his daughter, who looks like she'd be at least 4 years old, watching me clean in the main lobby. I didn't think much of it, mainly because I was more worried about getting out of the playground room as quickly as I can. I clean the inside of the playground's tubes and slides and any place I'd fit, clean the tables and the windows, and broom and mop. Throughout this, I have the door to the playground locked. The man and his daughter are sitting outside of the playground, clearly waiting for the door to the playground to open. I get out, taking the cleaning tools with me. Without locking the playground from the lobby side, I didn't have the keys on me, and you'd only be able to lock the playground without a key from inside its room. So I drop off the cleaning products in the back, and I tell my boss about the AC being out and to give me the key to lock the playground from the outside. She hands it to me, and I quickly head back to the playground to lock it, worrying that customers might try to get in despite the signs I put up clearly saying the playground was closed. Sure enough, the daughter was going inside the playground with the man holding the door open. I quickly get to him and ask him to take his daughter out, as the playground was closed due to issues with the AC and cleaning chemicals all over the playground. He gets angry, and while grabbing his daughter, he starts yelling at me, "I waited for so long for you to clean up that mess. Why are you closing the playground if the store is still open?" Me: "Sir, the reason is due to my boss telling me to close it. The playground was just cleaned and the chemicals can't be aired out because the AC is down." Entitled man: "When does it open?" Me: "I'm not entirely sure. My boss is calling the repair guy right now, so hopefully it'll be open in the morning." When I told him that, I'm guessing he didn't understand what I said, or he was just too angry to fully listen, but he then said, "Why is the playground only open in the mornings? What kids are going to be here in the playground if they'd be in school?" The day after was Saturday, so I was confused on what he'd meant on that comment, but I shrugged him off. I was already too tired, and I was in the middle of an allergy attack to say anything to the man, but that made him even more angry, and he said, "This is so king insane. I waited for 15 minutes to get my order and the cashiers were giving me attitude, and now you want to close the playground in the middle of the afternoon. I want your boss to fire you." He then rushes out, pulling his crying daughter behind him, and leaves. I thought that was the end of it, and I'd finally be able to go home to recover from my allergy attack, but not long after the male Karen left, my boss is on the phone with him. I was grabbing my things from the closet where all the employees put their bags, and I can clearly hear him screaming about how can the playground be closed in the afternoon. My boss is trying to calm him down by saying, "Boss, yes sir, I understand your frustration. However, for the safety of your daughter and other customers, I asked my employee to close it." Entitled man: "She gave me attitude. I waited so long for her to finish cleaning, and now my daughter is crying because she couldn't get in." Boss: "And I do apologize for closing the playground, but there were signs in front saying that the playground was closed for cleaning and the AC is out. Your daughter could have suffered from heat exhaustion." Entitled man: "But why did the employee tell me that the playground is only open in the mornings? What kids are going to be there in the morning?" Boss: "I did not tell my employee that the playground was only open in the mornings. I'll talk with her, though there is a chance that maybe there was a misunderstanding. Our repairman is coming in soon to take a look at our AC, so we hopefully should be open by tomorrow. I sincerely apologize for your inconvenience." The entitled man calmed down after that, and after a few more apologies, their call ended. My boss asked me why did I tell the man about the playground being open in the mornings, but when I explained what had happened and what I said, she later understood that it was a misunderstanding. After that, I was free to go home. I haven't seen that male Karen, but I did see his daughter yesterday with an old lady after school let out for the summer, so I'm gonna assume that's her grandma. She looked pretty happy, though I feel bad about what happened with her dad. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.